What's up everyone, Alex here. In this video, I want to share with you my impressions of Tactics Ogre Reborn, which I'm currently playing on the Nintendo Switch, and I just want to take the time to thank Square Enix for providing this game code. Every iteration of Tactics Ogre has brought on new improvements that modernize the experience while building on top of what made the original 1995 release great. My goal for this video is to share with you what new features you can expect in Reborn and how that affected my gameplay. More specifically, if you've already played through Tactics Ogre, I want to share with you the cool things that you'll find should you decide to return to this game. And, of course, for anyone who hasn't played Tactics Ogre, and, I don't know, you played the heck out of Triangle Strategy and you want more tactical RPG goodness, I want to share with you the many ways the game has been modernized so you can make better strategic decisions in the game. Keep in mind that I will only be talking about my experience during the first chapter of Tactics Ogre Reborn, though I should point out that I've already spent over 10 hours in it as of this recording. Now before I start, this is gonna be a massive video, so if you want to skip to specific sections, use the chapter markers for your convenience, because there is a lot to cover. I figured I'd start this impressions video by talking about the graphical filter that's applied to the sprites and the environments, because some people are calling it smudgy, and there seems to be this prevailing thought that applying filters to sprites like these, this is just the thing that repels people. And quite honestly, after playing it for so long, I'm actually more appreciative of how crisp some of the details look as opposed to retaining the pixelated look. And keep in mind that I personally generally dislike filtered sprite art. I was one of those people that refused to play Final Fantasy VI when it was first released on Steam, which was just the mobile port basically. But I found that in Tactics Ogre Reborn that I was more concerned about whether or not I could understand a battlefield and what's happening rather than the way the game looks. Because really, all this is do we understand what's going on? Are things blending in the background? And I think having a pixelated look might have made that a bit more difficult to understand. Now, it's just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but that is my experience after playing the game for 10 hours. I want to address this because some of you have said, well, Matsuno would never approve of this, never. But I have some news for you, actually. In an interview with IGN, Tactics Ogre Reborn producer Hiroaki Kato, who by the way worked on the game since the original 1995 release, shared, yeah, Matsuno is involved in pretty much every aspect of the game. He is helping design the script. He's checking all the things that kind of come out. He's involved with the battle design and UI and cutscenes, so he's kind of seeing the whole width and breadth of the entire game and checking everything, even offering feedback. So yeah, everything in this game has been approved by Matsuno-san. Moving away from that, I personally think that the voice acting in Tactics Ogre Reborn is way better than Triangle Strategy. Now, granted, I'm only a few hours into Triangle Strategy, but this is one of those situations where literally right out of the gate, Tactics Ogre Reborn's voice acting really struck a really good first impression, and I'm really pleased with everyone's performances in the game. Like, I've always talked about how voice acting should kind of make up for the shortcomings of a game's presentation or everything else to help round the entire package out. Not that Tactics Ogre needed it, but the fact that the voice acting is really good elevates the experience even further thanks to that, which is really cool. Now, the controls of the game are a bit tricky to navigate at first, and this is particularly because of how many functions there are. Like, there are multiple windows within dialog boxes, for example, where you have to hold the Y button and press the D-pad left or right to page through it. It's kind of a complex thing, but you'll get used to it eventually, especially after 10 hours. I certainly have had to. This says more about how much crazy detail there is in the game than a shortcoming, truthfully. And frankly, after playing the PSP version quite recently, it does play better than that from a functionality standpoint. One very cool feature that Tactics Ogre Reborn has is being able to quote-unquote flatten the battlefield so you can see better. When I found this feature, I thought this was a stroke of genius because while the developers have considered making everything fully 3D at one point, they decided against that and did this instead. My assumption is probably going to take a lot more work to try to make things rotatable in a fully 3D environment, so I think this compromise to me is just as good. Because what this also does is that even though the view is flattened, you can't exactly see the elevation of multiple tiles because, for one, it just kind of looks like a chessboard in a way, and the only way to see elevation is to highlight specific tiles. By allowing players to move between this flattened view and the isometric view, it kind of gives a different dimension to the battlefield that I really truly appreciate. And it does feel like the devs want you to use both, especially given how in previous iterations of the game, it was kind of difficult to see certain recessed tiles, if you will, and whether or not you could actually hit those tiles with your weapon or whatnot. And one really cool side effect of this is that you're able to zoom in and all the way out. It's so cool to be able to see the entire battlefield on the big screen and just kind of zoom it out. It's actually really fantastic. I get kicks out of it. It's just so cool. With all that said, let's stick to talking about combat. And the first thing that I want to share is that the skill rules have been revamped. So as your units gain levels, of course, they acquire special abilities or skills. And those skills give each class its own kind of play style. So it's like encouraging you a specific way of play. And as with items and magic, you can equip up to 4 of these skills. So you can't just like equip all of your skills. You have 4 slots and you kind of figure out how one specific unit of the same class could be different than another. So can't be jack of all trades. This is really good. In addition to this, the dev team has also added brand new skills with the goal of maintaining the unique feel of each class. One of my favorite new skills in this game is the pincer attack, and if you don't know what that does, it's basically an additional attack that is typically triggered out of turn in tactical games. And of course, you're gonna need all the help you can get because Reborn now features an all-new enemy AI that adapts to each situation. The biggest difference is now the AI considers the terrain, and it also recognizes features such as narrow roads and wide open plains, in addition to the player's movement, and it utilizes all of this to decide where skirmish areas are going to be and tries to figure out the best way to engage you. Something new to Tactics Ogre Reborn as well are the existence of buff cards that appear at random throughout the battlefield, which takes a little bit of getting used to because they appear so much during battle, but it adds this emergent element that kind of makes battles a little less straightforward and can really turn the tide if you're not paying attention. When a unit picks up a buff card, it gains bonuses that last basically for the rest of the battle, like increased attack power or increased crit chance, which is such a big deal. The bonus gain will depend on the type of card that you find, and your units must vie against the enemy to obtain these cards. And how you move and respond in combat to gain advantage is something that's very unique to this game, and the AI is aware of a lot of this stuff, and they will go and gun for these. You can only have 4 buff cards at once, and they all stack. So if you have like 2 or 3 crit chance, they all stack on top of each other, which is really crazy. In order to confirm the changes in the AI, I did play through a few battles in Chapter 1 of the original PSP release. More specifically, when you fight Nibeth in this really huge vertical map where he fought a bunch of undead monsters. And it did seem as though Reborn's AI was able to assess the situation a lot better than the PSP version. It continuously adapted to where my characters were located and responded accordingly, whether to press on the offense or stay on defense. This map is a really good example because in the PSP version, many of the enemies just started venturing too far forward, archers included, at least in my playthrough. But in Reborn, they were able to identify that they had the high ground, and they stayed there because they knew that they had a vertical advantage. And so I really felt the pressure trying to rush on top of this massive vertical area that felt really good from a challenge perspective. And if you're the kind of person who utilizes ally AI, that's been improved as well. There's actually 4 different AI settings that you can choose from. You can be an attacker, a defender, a ranged person, and a healer. You can quickly toggle through between manual and AI control for all of your units all at once from the battle party screen or even during battle, which means you're never really stuck with this setting for an entire battle. I personally have never tried it, but this is great for people who are just grinding levels and they don't want to control everybody. Along the same lines of skills, there's also brand new finishing moves, ninjutsu, and war dances have been updated. Over time, units can learn powerful finishing moves by meeting certain requirements. In the original iteration of Tactics Ogre, finishing moves, ninjutsu, and war dances required TP, or technical points. With Reborn, all of these abilities just use MP, making it much simpler to assess the status of units during battle and easier to construct a strategy. I've always felt that consolidating numbers like these help streamline battles and lessens the amount of things that you need to pay attention to. So this is actually a really, really good change. Also new to Tactics Ogre Reborn is trajectory prediction. And I just really am baffled by this because when I played the PSP version, the lack of this made it very unpredictable, and trying to cast missile spells, like I didn't know if it would go through very thin rows of allies and enemies. And now when firing weapons like bows and crossbows or casting spells like projectile spells, the game now displays trajectory prediction to make sure that the attacker can hit the target. This is a really good feature, and it's amazing that this game finally has it. There's also been changes to incapacitated units. So instead of outright dying, your unit will get a status effect called incapacitated when their HP drops to 0, along with a countdown telling you like, hey, you need to hurry up and revive this person because if the countdown reaches 0, they're completely dead. Any incapacitated unit can be revived any number of times, provided that this countdown never reaches 0. So it's almost like the reverse of the undead, where the undead need to be exercised, and you're really going to need it with this revamped AI, let me tell you. Shifting to prior to battle, the new battle party screen features a lot of really cool new stuff that can aid you in formulating your strategy. For one, you can now save up to 5 different battle parties. Battle parties are just kind of loadouts for your different troops. So if you have a range-specific battle party, you can have that. If you have like a mix of both, you can have that as well. And you can save 5 different battle parties now, which is really, really cool. Also brand new to Tactics Ogre Reborn, and I can't believe this never had that before, is the Scout command, which allows you to check out the battlefield and what kind of troops you'll be facing against as well. And because you can change your unit's classes and equipment on the battle party screen, you can use the information you gained to assemble the best party possible. I've used this countless of times now, and it's really helped me formulate a winning strategy every single time. Speaking of equipment requirements also have changed. In previous iterations of Tactics Ogre, there were requirements for using equipment like weapons and armor that had level restrictions, and also items that required separate specialty skills to equip. In Reborn, you can equip and use anything as soon as you find it, but of course there's still going to be class restrictions for equipment and magic. For example, a knight cannot equip a bow, a cleric cannot equip attack spells, and so on and so forth. This strips the game of unneeded complexity from the equipment standpoint and allows you to get into battles a lot quicker. Battles also now feature bonus objectives that bestow additional rewards, whether it's a new ability, pieces of armor, or additional experience. This is pretty straightforward. It's just another bonus objective on top of the existing objective, and I've found that all of these bonus objectives to be doable for every single battle. One very cool new thing, and one thing that was removed, is that random encounters have been completely removed from Tactics Ogre, and now you get to choose whether or not you engage in training battles. It used to be that when you move from area to area in Tactics Ogre, you'd be accosted just randomly. But now you can literally engage in training battles when you reach certain locations. And what's really cool is that your units cannot be killed in these battles, which should make leveling a bit easier. I think this is really cool because this allows you to go to shops in nearby areas without having to worry about being accosted and having to fight battles. Because sometimes these random battles just kind of lengthen the experience unnecessarily because you had no control over it. With these trading battles and the removal of random encounters, this allows you to take the game at whatever pace you want. Because really, those random battles didn't really make the game harder, it was just a pain to have to go through. And if grinding isn't your thing, that's okay too, thanks to these new items called charms. Charms can be found during battle, and you can also get them after battle as a reward. Some of the effects include raising a unit's level by 1, grant experience points, permanently increase stats, and change a unit's element to another element. Essentially, this allows you to customize your units exactly how you want them, without having to spend the time to grind levels. This next addition might feel contentious, but it's actually one of my favorite additions, which is the party level. Essentially, the party level is the level of your entire army as a whole, which serves as a level cap for individual units. The party level cap increases as players advance through the story. Essentially, what it does is it forces you to be more strategic during combat. And since the party level is just set slightly higher than the level of enemy units, it should no longer feel as though the difficulty jumps sharply after leveling up. And combined with the new AI, this can be a lethal combination. So in a way, grinding in this game is kind of really lessened in its importance, and they want to make sure that you're never overpowering enemies, which I think is a really good idea. In addition to all of these new features, there are existing features that have been rebalanced for Tactics Ogre Reborn to make it feel more enjoyable. All of these details I'm about to share are all taken from Square Enix blog. These balance changes include adjustment to enemy forces, adjustments that have been made to the stats, equipment, and skills of each unit, as well as their positions on the battlefield, adjustments to classes, equipment, consumables, magic, skills, finishing moves, and debuffs. The team has optimized equipment, consumables, magic, skills, finishing moves, and debuffs as part of the AI update, and with the goal of making the flow of battle simpler and easier to understand. And stats and ability activation requirements have been adjusted, and there have been additions and removals in all of these categories where appropriate. The rogue class is also now reserved for enemy units. Shopping has also been improved to provide a much smoother experience, which now allows you to easily buy and sell equipment, consumables, magic, and other items, as well as hire new units. An improved user interface keeps useful information at your fingertips. When buying or selling equipment, you can quickly check information such as the current number of items in your inventory and which units have them equipped. Crafting, which enhances the performance of equipment and consumables, now succeeds 100% of the time, eliminating wasted ingredients and the need to redo failed attempts. In addition, a convenient function to craft multiple items all at once has been added. So okay, that is a lot of information, and we've been here for minutes on end. So what does all of these things mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, to me, Tactics Ogre Reborn not only modernizes the Tactics Ogre experience, but also delivers a new set of challenges that make the game feel fresh and new, even if you played the game already. And the new features don't at all detract from the difficulty of the game, and instead, it actually enhances what's already there, while addressing some of the issues caused by some of the changes done on the PSP port. I personally like the party level system as it emphasizes the importance of a well-balanced army, and with the ability to scout, it lets you take your strategy even further. I just can't imagine that this was a thing that didn't exist in previous games. And for folks who say, oh man, this makes the game easy, this feature brings the game in line with other modern tactical games. Besides, you still have to fight the battle. That being said, I didn't play with the party AI settings, so that might make things easy. But personally, I don't intend on checking this out because I like having control of my entire party. Overall, it's been extremely difficult to try to go back to play the PSP version of Tactics Ogre, especially when researching what changed, and the streamlining of many of the game's features, as well as the work done rebalancing the entire game, not just an aspect of it, but the whole package, so far has been an honestly refreshing experience. And of course, this is coming from somebody who doesn't play a lot of tactical games. This game has me hook, line, and sinker. And especially since I'm playing this on Switch, it is so difficult not to think about this game and not want to have just one more battle, just one more, and retrying multiple battles with different configurations of characters, trying new classes, and testing out the different skills that you unlock. It's been an absolute blast playing through this game. But again, this is just my experience during the first chapter of Tactics Ogre Reborn. But now I want to hear what you think. Are you a longtime Tactics Ogre fan and curious about all the other things that I talked about here? Or are you a brand new Tactics Ogre fan or tactical RPG fan who might be curious if Reborn is a game that they want to consider? Or better yet, if you're a traditional turn-based RPG fan and, I don't know, want to get into a tactical RPG and have many questions, post all of your thoughts in the comments below, questions or whatnot, and let's talk about it. Tactics Ogre Reborn is coming out on November 11th on PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.